Hi guys, some years ago David Cameron referred to UKIP, Nigel Farage's old party, along with some of the crazies in his own, as swivel-eyed loons. So with some high-profile figures, both influencers and ex-MPs joining the new incarnation of UKIP, would it make sense for the Conservatives either to merge with Reform or engage in some sort of electoral pact, a bit like what Boris Johnson did in 2019? Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, spoke to Kay Burley about a recent defection to the Reform outfit and was asked if his party would work with Reform. His answer was interesting.
Yesterday, Tim Montgomerie sat where you are. Oh, what does that mean?
I'm acknowledging the point.
It was was that of disappointment?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. He feels that it was with a heavy heart that he had to leave the party. It was eventually as a direct result of your situation as far as migration numbers are concerned. But he does think and hope that there is wriggle room for Reform and the Conservatives to work together.
Well, I'm sad about Tim's departure. I've known Tim for a long time. On the migration point, I mean, Kemi acknowledged in her speech last week that successive governments over decades, including recent Conservative governments, have made mistakes on migration. The numbers legal migration have been far too high, and we will take a different approach now as a new Conservative party with a new leader in order to win back the trust of people like Tim. Look, of course, if people like Tim end up supporting Reform, all that's going to happen is we risk another Labour government at the next election. We warned about it in the last election a few months ago. We said if people voted Reform, it would hand Labour a landslide, and that sadly is exactly what happened.
If the Conservatives work together, that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Well, I mean, the Reform Party have said they want to try and destroy the Conservative Party, so it's quite difficult to work with people.
Rhetoric.
Well, I mean, who knows? It's what they say, and you have to take it at face value, and it's quite hard to work with people who say they're dedicated to your destruction.
I remember previously Lord Cameron talked about Reformers, predecessor to Reformers, being swivel-eyed loons and then wanted to work with them.
Well, I'm not sure he ever worked with them directly, but I wouldn't, by the way, I wouldn't endorse that language.
Would you not? Okay. So is there a chance that the Conservatives and Reform UK could work together? Well, there is a chance, but I don't see it in the short or medium term. Maybe sometime in the future. But the problem for the Conservatives is, at the moment, they have nothing they can offer Reform. There's nothing they can bring to the table. And ironically, the more the Conservatives talk about immigration, the more Kemi Badenoch bangs on about, immigration numbers, the more she's helping Reform and Nigel Farage. So there's nothing they can take to the table. When it comes to the NHS, they can't bring anything to the table. When it comes to immigration, they can't bring anything to the table. When it comes to the economy, they can bring nothing to the table. So there's nothing that the Conservatives can offer Reform if they want to form some sort of pact. We saw back in 2019 where Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage sat down together and Farage stood down candidates to help Boris Johnson, but that was about getting Brexit done. Farage didn't want to be blamed for the Conservatives failing, so he stood down candidates to help Boris Johnson. But that didn't happen at the recent election. Reform see themselves as the official or the de facto opposition. They want to be the official opposition someday, and the Conservatives are standing in their way. Now, you'll probably see some Conservatives maybe convinced, maybe money is going to change hands, but we'll probably see some Conservative candidates convinced to step aside to allow a Reform UK candidate to run against Labour or run against another party. This is possible. But when it comes to some sort of pact, you need to bring something to the table. And the Conservatives bring nothing to the table. There's nothing they can offer Reform and Nigel Farage at the moment. Now, that may change in the future. The Conservatives may change leader. Kemi Badenoch is not doing very well. Maybe somebody else would do a better job. They could eat into Reform UK's lead over the Conservatives in some areas. But when it comes to immigration, the public are not happy with the Conservatives. If you're concerned about immigration, you're not going to vote for the Tories, you're going to vote for Reform UK. Or maybe even Labour, but it's more likely Reform UK. So until the Conservatives can put their past behind them, and I think that would require a new leader, somebody fresh, somebody not connected with the past, until they can do that, they're going to be constantly being undermined by Reform UK and Farage. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.